Evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Skookum Session Bigfoot Podcast. This is going to be episode 8. I can't believe, wow, guys, it's crazy. I mean, I can't believe we're at freaking episode 8 already. You know, time just flies, I guess, and we're having fun, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I mean, Lord knows we have our share of good times in this show. That's for sure.
8 weeks. Wow.
Yeah, no nuts, man. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, shit. Went by quick. I mean, hey, I think we're doing something right.
We're having fun. I don't care if anybody out
We
there.
are.
We're having fun.
Well, anyway, guys, we're gonna, of course, as usual, we got Mr. Spikes, Mr. Gary Spikes. How we doing, Gary?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Good to have you. Good to have you, as usual. And Mr. John Schweitzer, of course.
Yes, sir.
As usual, John.
Yeah, doing
good. To have you.
Got my Girl Scouts cookies and MREs. I'm ready for tonight.
You lucky bastard. I wish I had some chocolate mint Girl Scout cookies are the bomb.
There you go. What one?
Yeah. Tease me a little more, John. It's all right. Sean, how's it going, bud? We got Sean Wilson, of course.
Better than I deserve, that's for sure.
Is everything going all right, Sean, aside from regular everyday life?
Yeah, you know, it's the family went off to Florida today. This morning I stayed behind because I don't have enough vacation hours saved up, so
right.
I got the house to myself for a week. I'm gonna do a little working around the house, and
there you go. No better time to get it done, right?
Right.
I would. If my family was going to take off to Florida and me stay home, I would almost be rejoicing.
Yeah,
I am a little bit because I'm gonna do a little bit of hunting. Normally I'm the guy that's cooking dinner and taking care of everybody, but this week I'm gonna just kind of do whatever the fuck I want.
There you go. Perfect.
Y'all's rifle started, didn't
What's up, Travis?
Just
Another day in paradise.
Great to have you, buddy. As usual.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad you are here. Glad you are here, bud. And Mr. J.R. Kitchen, the legend himself.
I don't know about legend, but you know, it's just another day, kind of dreary and cold, but we're above ground. Pretty thankful for what we got.
Freaking dreary and cold up here too, man. It's just depressing weather. mentally and physically draining. And I had quite the situation this morning. I don't know if I told most of you, but I'll explain the rest later. I'm gonna.
What you had?
World of shit, literally. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. But that's what we got going on as of right now. Being the subject matter, we were gonna kind of make this the if you want to call it, our little trilogy on the last couple, the cap in the last 2 weeks, you know, on our discussion on species and, you know, what we think these things are and how many there are out there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we might have a guest host come out and be coming on a little bit, Justin Decker, who's a great guy. And he, you know, Justin, John.
I know him on the internet. Yeah. I talked to him there. Never met him.
Sean, you know Justin.
Yeah, we've talked.
He's good. He's good people. He's got guy. He's got a good with this particular subject we're covering. He's got a really good mind, and I'll let him explain that. I'm not gonna open his backstory up. I'll let him do that. It's not my place, but you'll all you out there listening, you'll see live. You know. Anyone remember exactly where we left off last week? Because we left off in a pretty cool spot, and then I wanted to kind of pick up from there. Switzer, you're usually the one that remembers the areas we left off in, so I'm going to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. That's pretty good that you do that, because you know what? I cannot remember. I know we started off with Lovelock, Lovelick, blah blah blah, red-haired giants.
We did. And I think that was
on the script or something. Yeah. But I cannot remember what it was that we said when we all went goodbye and then started all this BS chatter afterwards. But
Well, that's
Probably
all right.
genitalia.
give me a hint. Give me a hint.
You know, it probably it's John.
First letter sounds
It
like
surprised
what?
me.
Huh? Yeah, genitalia. I bet that's where it left off.
Probably.
You know, with this group, I mean, I'm sure maybe we probably covered it at some point. You know.
Yeah.
What did we determine about Sasquatch genitalia? Was it one of those red rocket things like a dog, or is it like a human?
That's what I
Phallus.
want to know.
That's well, I
Well-
personally have never seen seen one, but I mean, who knows? That's a good question.
Let's
Probably
just
All
say
right.
that we know that chimpanzees are little, so we leave it at that. That way, we're not put down by Sasquatch when we get out there.
What a surprise!
I did make 4
Oh,
notes
it's always
last week.
okay.
I don't remember what we were talking about, but I wrote down ancient humans, the
There we
continental
go.
shift,
There we
found
go.
fossil footprints of people, modern human footprints,
Okay.
and ancient ruins that can't be explained through the timeline.
Okay. Perfect. I actually,
I think where we kind of left off was the fact that the history that's being taught is not anywhere close to being accurate for
Yes.
the history of humans.
That's a fact.
right, and I think we all agree. I think we all pretty much
Yeah.
saw eye to eye on that. I know, I think the last thing I remember talking about was Homo floresiensis, when they found that in Indonesia. 13,000. They, anthropologists, archaeologists, they estimate that they were here right up until 13,000 years ago. Okay, so let's face it. In the whole spectrum of time, what's 13,000 years? It's really nothing.
Less than a
Drop in the
millisecond.
bucket.
No less than a millisecond. Exactly. And I think someone else sent me a link about another one that was just recently discovered, and I want to say it was in. God, I'll have to look for the post after, and I'll post something about it. But something very similar to floresiensis. I always pronounce it wrong, but something very similar, something short in stature, and which leads me to the question, with the let's get into I guess we can get into the other Bigfoot type species out there in the world. I don't think we've covered that much, have we? We didn't really get into that a lot. Which makes you wonder, okay, you've got Sumatra, you've got orang pendek, a lot of people might think, hey, floresiensis and pendek, or were they one and the same? Well, but what are our thoughts? I mean, I know there's really no way to answer that question, but I mean, I guess we can speculate, even though speculation sometimes isn't the best practice in the world. But I don't know. What do you guys think? You think that's a possibility? I mean,
You have the orang pendek in Sumatra, which is basically, and it's been seen by mainstream biologists there studying the Sumatran tiger.
yes,
They witnessed it themselves, and they're extremely credible witnesses.
yes, very ape-like.
Yes, very ape-like, but bipedal. Kind of funny nickname at Littlefoot because they're small. But there's also reports out of South America of a very similar species. I cannot remember the name.
Yes, there is.
By several different tribes.
Yeah, and you know what? When I interviewed Stacy and I did our first interview with the other show, the gentleman we interviewed mentioned that species you were talking about, Travis. And for the life of me, I cannot remember what it's called, but it's very much like pendek. Well, even here, the natives, and Gary, I think you and I were talking about this. The natives here describe something along those lines too. That's one of them, exactly. That's one of them. Yeah, something small, but not small and small in height, but not small in stature. Like pendek, they describe as being very put together. That it was Jr. You and I, when we interviewed D'Alessandro DiPutra, remember he was saying 3.5, 4 feet max, but you're talking 170 pounds. Now people may think that's not big, but at that height. That's pretty.
Yeah,
That's pretty well put together.
You don't really want that thing coming at you. I really don't know how many human like characteristics that thing actually has, like to make it like Bigfoot like or stuff like. But yeah, it's a cryptid, you know.
Yes. Yeah. 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 I don't think Floresiensis and Pendek are one and the same. I personally don't, but I was just interested to hear what you guys had to say. But Gary, now we've talked about this and how a lot of your descent comes from, you were saying, Mongolia, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I know in Mongolia there's a lot of Almas sightings.
Yeah.
Almas. Now they describe that as very Neanderthal looking, if I'm not mistaken.
It really coincides with the amnesty in the from the Carpathian Mountains all the way up to the Caucasus Mountains. You know, the Russian. Right. They do have a very similar appearance, and they actually describe them more as a humanistic type instead of like what we have over here. And I've always wondered if that's also stretches down into Nepal, because if you look at the geographical area, it's a distance, but the terrain is conducive of them traveling if it ain't real close to the Yeti also in stature and description.
Very, very well could be, because
And
you hear different stories on there being different types of the Yeti too. In Russia alone, you've got the in Siberia, you have the Russian Almas, and then you have what they call the Russian Yeti as well, which resembles more of our Bigfoot.
American Bigfoot.
American Bigfoot.
so
Yeah.
you go into mainland China, they have the Yeren,
the Aaron,
which is more of a 5 to 7 footish, more man-sized hominid species. And all of the geographically, all of this, of course, is connected.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah, that same mountain range, stretches from the Carpathians up through the Caucasus over, and of course Mongolia is on the north side of China, and it all stretches all the way up to Siberia. But it seems like the further south you get, once again coinciding with the North American continent, it seems like the southern provinces, they seem to be smaller, and then when you get into the northern provinces, they're more robust and bigger. We're seeing here. It's the combination.
Which is that law we were talking about. I forget. As you go north and north,
the colder it gets,
mammals get bigger.
Body size.
Yeah. Which makes sense. It's kind of a. John's looking it up right now. I can tell, but it makes sense. It really does, and as far as subspecies of these things. So I said it once and I'll say it. I know it's hard enough to wrap your head around the fact that there's one running around out there, and I'm going back to North America as we speak, just North America. But it's hard to wrap your head around there just being one type of these things. But I just think there's more than people think. I really do.
Agree to disagree with you there, because if you look at it as a biological entity or a biological creature, it makes more sense that you would have such a wide variance, because every other animal on the planet has a wide variance. It would be less believable to me if everywhere they was all the same and all described the same. Then I would lead almost to it being a supernatural, aka spiritual entity.
Right.
Well, that right there to me disputes the psychologist and psychiatric claims that this is some shared primal memory or fear that we have, that people see hairy hominids in the woods.
Right.
Why they all so different by different locations, even not even what they look like, but how they act.
Yes.
Travis, are you referring to I know what you're saying. Are you referring to
it ties into it was a study done, I don't remember, I remember reading about it years and years ago, and it's actually tied into like serial killers, and it's something to do with like the built-in fear of strangers that goes back to our primal past, where
we still have it.
Like, say we're all out in the woods and we run up on another group of dudes in the woods. Are they friends, foes? Neither. Do we kill them?
Right.
We just walk by each other and leave each other alone?
Right.
That all ties into basically what they're trying to say is that all human beings have a fear of the dark and a fear of some big man-like monster, which would be
Right.
an enemy, but would be manifested in your brain to a point that you would view it and skew the details and make it into this big hairy monster.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I get that. It makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is why is it all over the globe they go from 4 feet tall to 10 feet tall.
To even
Different
taller
facial features, builds,
Yeah.
Color of hair.
Exactly.
The details shouldn't vary that much if this was some kind of a collective, deep down fear that people have.
Right. Right.
The same could be true for humans. The same could be true for humans. Like some of them are 4 foot tall and 8 foot tall. I don't know. Just saying.
No, I hear what you're saying. But what do you guys? I mean, back to that, Travis, real quick. Let me ask you a question now. There's also something psychologists have said for years, and I know all you guys have heard this. The fear that we get, okay, let's take, for example, JR has a sighting, and the fear that he's projecting out stems from because our ancestors had to deal with these things thousands of years ago. Is that what you're saying? Or are you saying?
Oh, this study went way deeper than that. This went all the way down to like apex predators, birds of prey, serpents, big cats. The fact that people see faces and objects and the woods,
so you're talking it's kind of like hardwired into us.
Yeah, like it's a deep down primal instinct to be afraid of these things and to manifest them where they don't exist and they won't really there, that your mind is so afraid that it's literally completely mocking this up and producing it. And I do believe some people probably do, if they already have a predetermination that there's a big hairy monster in the woods and they see something anywhere close to it and they're afraid. Yes, that's possible. I don't doubt that. But too many level-headed people are seeing these things for it not to be something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You talk about it being
99 out of 100 people that see these things ain't looking for these things. It just happens.
Yeah.
It just happens.
Yeah. The odd researcher that actually sees one because he's looking for one. I mean, it's hard to find them. That most sightings happen just by chance. I wasn't looking for a goddamn Bigfoot when I saw mine.
Right.
I wish I never would have seen that son of a bitch. To be honest with you.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
I agree.
Most sightings you're not actually out there looking.
We touched base on that last week. 90% of the time when we're out there looking for them, we're not going to see them because our skill set is so much below theirs. Usually, predominantly, like you said, it's an accidental, type thing. Yeah. Stumble upon one, or I truly believe that when we do see one, when we're out there, it's because it wants us to. It's a decoy.
I agree with you there. 100%.
Take your eyes away from the other group.
Absolutely.
Exactly. You was talking about being hardwired, or I said hardwired in relationship to what you said. Now, I don't know if that's actually something. I mean, I really don't. But I can remember way back in my childhood, before I ever heard about Bigfoot, I'd have dreams and I'd walk down the stairs in this old house and I'd go around the corner and something big and hairy would grab me. Now, I remember having several of those dreams and waking up and going, Mommy, because I wasn't even in the first grade. So, now, but I did have James Whitcomb Riley read to me, the poet, the goblins will get you if you don't watch out. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a real good point to that. If you look at all of our major legends, there's always a base of truth in some legend, in every legend. And I was talking to Stu a couple of weeks ago about, the most famous of giants in England and the trolls in England. And they're all described as hairy individuals, whether they're 4 foot tall or, 10 foot tall. There's way too much involved in this for it not to be a biological creature, with the evidence that leads to this that we all are collecting. The species variance across from geographical areas, all the way back to, like you said, that primal fear is ingrained in us for some reason. And that reason is we've been dealing with these guys for generations upon thousands of years. So that has ingrained it into us. All the evidence pushes me to believe that these are a biological creature, not a supernatural creature.
Then if all of this is ingrained, if this works that way, and all of this is ingrained in us and hardwired in us for a survival instinct of flight or,
Right.
whatever, all right, then it too would be within every other prey animal or predator on the face of the earth, whether it's a fox or a dog or a cat, because a dog knows when to run, so fear is something that we need to get a hold of Stephen King about this stuff, right? But fear is something that is there as a safeguard. It's
survival.
It's survival. It's okay to be afraid.
Absolutely.
It's just what you're going to do with it at that time.
Right.
And if it works that way for us as primates, then I believe it works that way for chimpanzees and right on down the line. I mean, if you're going to approach it that way, you got to give them all an even shake, right?
Yeah.
Well, and if you look at behavioral patterns of every animal, they do have it. I mean, honestly, my dog knows when to, like you said, my dog knows when to run or when to attack.
Right.
And you see, I was just listening to, reading some reports and listening to some stuff today about how dogs, because I was discussing it with a wife, how they react to the target species. And it's a very prominent, reaction from the dogs that usually bark at things to hush up underneath the bed.
Yes.
Well, how many of these dogs have we heard reports of that come, they hear something in the woods and they go out after it, then they come back running, screaming with their tails tucked between their legs, hide underneath the porch, all because they've seen a Bigfoot.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
that one I just showed you, Pitbull I just showed you guys, he did it to me. I mean, we didn't even see one. We got screamed at. But something about that scream he knew was off. Him and my German Shepherd. And they that's 2 dogs, that would have fought anything off for me. They grew up together, protecting the family and me and all of us. But something about that yell that night, that scream, told them that whatever that is, we ain't going to be able to handle this one.
Get out of Dodge. Yep.
My great uncle, years and years ago, I was just a kid. This would have been like mid-80s. He, when he was still young enough to do it, he was a big time coon hunter. But he had gotten too old, but he still had 2 blue ticks and a plot hound that he left out. And I remember, I never forgot, they came home and were tore to pieces. One of them's intestines was hanging out. One of them had the hide ripped almost completely off one side, dragging it on the ground. I mean, he had to put the dogs down. And
that's for badass hounds too.
What did it? What did it? A bear or a hog?
No idea.
I'll be damned. Okay.
That right there, because we used to run coyotes with plots, and I know what a badass hound they are. I mean, they can fight. They can, that's pretty wild, Travis. Like,
I've never forgotten that. It was 3 of them.
I mean,
3 of them.
3 of
2
them.
blue
But
ticks
even
and a plot.
even so, I mean, that's kind of bad. That's crazy. Wow.
The 6 individuals in this group, I know of 3 of us that's seen these things face to face. And I know of the 3 that the 3 have expressed to each other. The rest of you, I know like JR and Travis, I know y'all have, seen them, but me and Jeremiah and Sean have expressed to each other the internal turmoil that we had when we've seen these things. And to me, I think that's part of that fight or flight. The amount of emotional turmoil that you have over this over a period of time, there's no doubt that a dog or something that's more natural, because I hate to say this, our instincts, John mentioned that in one of the prior shows about how technology and our mindset and sociology has detuned us from nature.
Yeah.
Well, an animal, whether it be a dog or whatever it is not detuned like we are. So it would be more profound with them. I know what I've seen is very profound in my mind. I mean, it's affected every aspect of my life.
Everything.
I mean, you guys know I'm not gonna BS you. I'm terrified of these things. And if we as a human with our superior intellect and our sociological teaching and psychological things that we have, we barricade ourselves from that. Now, an animal would not have that. It's going to be a more basic instinctual response to these things.
Right.
If you understand what I'm saying, it's going to be.
Yeah. Absolutely. An immediate fight or flight,
I don't think a big brown bear would honestly hold a candle to one of these. I don't think they would because of the intelligence level. The bear's better armed. I hate to say that with its claws and its. I seen the picture last night. We was watching an old show called The Bear, and if everybody Bart,
good movie.
Was that the one made by Disney? The Bear.
About the bear. And
one of my favorite movies. Yeah.
Well,
It's a great movie.
We Googled Bart, the one that played that bear. That bear was 9'7". Now, he was not even a pointed bear. Any of you bear hunters ought to know he was not. He scored like a 10 on the scale. Which they was in 13s. He was 9'7" and weighed 1,779 pounds. I could pull up a picture and show it. He opens his mouth and his canines, and the guy that was 6'4", but his canines, he had the whole guy's mouth in his head like this, and his canines was down in here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The scene, the part. Now, this is just something I heard, so I don't know. And I'll say that right now. I don't know for sure, but it's a story that I picked up from my brother that knew a guy that had,
Yeah.
But the scene where the hunter's got his back to the rock, and there's the bear.
Yeah.
And he opens his mouth, and just, of course, they dub in the roar.
Yeah, because he had taught him not to actually.
Yeah. Supposedly, near the end of that, he started to actually growl and roar, and here this guy is standing there with his back against the rock. Supposedly, he just pissed his pants and everything. The way the guy describes it. And it's like, first you're standing there with something, that's an animal that's supposed to be okay. And then all of a sudden it's not okay. And it's a situation you've got it. There was no place to flight.
Absolutely.
but they got the bear calmed down and they went on with the shooting. But yeah, that's one of my favorite.
I can agree with Gary on that. And the reason I can say this, about an hour and a half south of me is Asheboro Zoo. It's actually the largest covered zoo. They own the most land of any zoo in the United States. Their chimpanzee exhibit, you can walk around the top and you can see them from up above, but you can go around the bottom and go into kind of like a room deal that has plexiglass.
Yeah.
And when they're in the mood, they'll come right up to the plexiglass, so you're literally face to face.
Yeah.
And we were there a few years ago, and it was a male, and he was literally about the same size as me. We were about pound for pound. And that dude had gotten like 6 inches from the glass, and I looked him in the eye, and that was one of the most intimidating things I have ever looked into the eyes of. Because when I did, there was stuff going on in his head, and you could tell it.
Oh, yeah.
The intelligence, I mean, it was just something about it. Seeing something so human-like, so smart, that I know what kind of power they have.
Oh, yeah.
Pound for pound, I mean, they rip us to pieces.
Oh,
yeah.
And even through that, 3 or 4 inch thick piece of glass. It was just, and he didn't do anything. It wasn't like he was trying to challenge me. It was just, it was something about that look. I mean, it's like when you look a guy in the eyes, and it's just something about him. It just makes you nervous.
Yeah,
that's the way this dude was, and it was really, really spooky.
1,000 pounds to that.
Exactly. That's the point I'm getting at. That's exactly the point I'm trying to make. Multiply that dude by 10.
Did you? I'm curious. Did you give him a look back? I
didn't do anything. I didn't mess with him or nothing like that. I looked back into his eyes because it was honestly really cool, even though it was intimidating. Just the fact that he was that close to interact with it. It was brief.
He was a fully mature male chimp then, Travis. Huh?
He was fully mature. He was grown.
A couple 100 pounds, probably 180 pounds. Did you say?
Yeah. I weigh 180, and I would size him to me easy. Probably had a little bit on me.
That chimp could probably pick up 600 pounds easily.
Easily.
Grab a hold of a limb, reach down, and pick 600 pounds up. There was a story. There was a fella here years and years and years and years ago. Man, I was still not even a teen. I was like 12 or 13, and he had a chimp. And I did see this chimp. This chimp was a baby. Dress him up like a cowboy in a cowboy hat, the whole bit. Right. Supposedly, when that chimp got just about a year older, they were playing around in the garage, and this chimp grabbed a hold of the track that the overhead door swings in, and reached down and grabbed the lawnmower by the handle. All right, picked it up off the ground and threw it about 15 feet.
Wow.
Now, this is about a 2-year-old chimp. That was the story. I don't know if it's true, but I think that the idea that whoever it was that told the story is trying to get across is the power that these things have, the ability that they have.
Pound for pound, a chimpanzee is supposed to be 8 times stronger than a man of equal size.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what it says right here. Now this is the average chimp is at least 5 times stronger than the strongest man there is.
You're talking about that thing's eyes. I know we discussed it in a prior show, but and I know that some of his stuff is off the wall and crazy. But if you watch Todd Standing's documentary, I don't care none about all that facial stuff that he shows.
Yeah.
But at the very end of it, he shows one supposedly looking underneath right at the very end where he says his camera died. He shows one looking through a brush pile and looking at him with the eyes.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you flat out from my own personal experience, when I seen that, I about shit my pants again.
That's the one that's kind of blondish?
Huh?
Is that the one that's kind of like blondish?
No, this is at the very end of the documentary. You see just like a few seconds of it. It looks like an overgrown chimpanzee looking with the black eyes, the black face. It doesn't have all the fur and stuff on it. But I'll pull that up, and that was uncanny scary because it literally did look like a overgrown chimp looking at you, and it was spooky because that was pretty close to what I seen.
Me too, exactly. And when you're talking about the zoo thing, that brought up a memory with me. I took my kids to the Henry Dorley Zoo in Omaha last year, and we have the same sort of exhibit with gorillas we can walk through. There's a gorilla sitting on that glass, and he's turning around. He looks at me. It's the same skin, that same texture, the wrinkles and all that shit. That's exactly what I saw. What I saw. And that thing that Todd Standing showed is really close too. Now, I don't think Todd Standing is legit at all. I think he's a glory seeker. But he did a really good recreation, or that's the one legit piece of evidence that he has. Because
right. I see what I hear what you're saying.
That's nuts on to what I saw.
I don't think I've seen it.
I'm trying to find it as we speak.
So let's talk about the Billy Ape for a second, okay? They were discovered, Billy Ape is in report, You're talking about, now this is like what they call the super chimp or whatever, the most recent great ape.
It's supposed to be the one that's like more highly predatory,
6
got
foot.
more pronounced canines.
Bigger.
Yeah, and they're bigger too.
Yeah,
they're one part of the. They're found in one part of the Congo. They can reach up to 6 feet and 350 pounds. Now, can you imagine that you talk about a 180-pound chimp? How much stronger they are? Can you imagine one that's 350? I mean, incredible. And then you get into the strength of a fully mature silverback gorilla. I mean, that's just nuts. It's funny. One of you just brought up the Gary. You brought up a scrap between a full-grown grizzly or coastal brown bear with a Sasquatch. It wouldn't hold. You don't think it would hold a candle? Well, it's there's an article right here, and it gives a scenario, and it kind of reminds you of that show. You guys remember that show? It's called Animal versus Animal on the Animal Planet. Well, it talks about the outcome between a gorilla and a full-grown male lion. And in this article right here, it gives the edge to the silverback because of, like you were saying, Gary, the intelligence and the pure power. Not that, like it says right here, not that the lion would not bloody it up quite a bit, but in the end, this is just, speculation on the internet. What I'm saying is that
a lion doesn't have a dog in the fight. A lion is built to fight a lion.
That's correct.
A Highland silverback gorilla, a male, a big male.
A big male.
He first of all, he has more power.
Way more.
He doesn't have the claws, but he does have the teeth and the jaws. But also, he can use all of his limbs to bear.
Yep.
Whereas a lion is more or less. He's more limited as far as what he can. Yeah. He doesn't have the same physical capabilities or flexibilities that gorilla does. That's the reason I would put a big male Sasquatch against a big grizzly bear, as long as it was a honest face-to-face confrontation without an ambush scenario or something like that.
Right.
Just because even we as people, I mean, you, Jeremiah, you fought mixed martial arts.
Mm-hmm.
You know everything a human being can do with our body. Imagine what they can do with theirs.
Oh my God!
The techniques,
incredible.
The leverage, positions, and add exponential amounts of force and power and torque to that.
I got
it. They got hands. They can pick up a rock, pick up a stick. They can choke. Rip. They can do.
Without a doubt.
Nothing like an opposable thumb.
Right? I mean, you're right, Travis. I agree. Gotta agree with you on that one. I mean, and then it gets into just that just reminded me. It also I think I told you guys this before, but there's an old website. I don't know if it's still up, but it was called BigfootEncounters.com. Do you guys remember that by any chance?
I think so.
Anybody? But anyway,
you told me about it. I think.
Did I tell you about that story, John?
I think you did.
If you got, I'll send you guys a link. But anyway, supposedly they were in what's the part of Siberia that almost hits the Russian, or the part of Siberia that almost touches the Aleutians, in Alaska. It's very close, like 40 miles or whatever.
Yeah, I can't think of the name of it.
Yeah,
it's right there.
Yeah,
they were brown bear hunting there, okay, and supposedly they dropped a big one, and once they got it opened up and got it out and did the skin. Well, there was had almost what looked like human bite marks on the side of its neck, giant human bite marks on the side of its, on the muscle once they got it open. There were scratches across the chest. There was bruises inside the crotch here. Holy shit.
That's it.
Folks, this gives me the creeps. I'm looking at it on a 40-inch screen, and it gives me the creeps.
Yeah, that kind of brings me back as well. That's interesting.
Huh.
Look at the breath.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah, that's very, very close to what I
Now,
saw.
Was that a
Look at the
video?
eye.
Was that a video or is that a photograph?
This
It's
is
a
It's a
video.
photo. But
Is
is it a video?
yeah. And
Look
they,
at those eyes. I don't know.
Like, where's the hair in this thing, man? If you've ever seen Predator, and you've ever saw the scene whenever Carl Weathers and the other black guy, they were actually hunting the thing, and that black guy's like looking through the logs for the predator. That's kind of what it looks like to me, personally.
Yep.
Fair enough. Fair
look
enough.
at and the breath. Does that not look like a male chimpanzee to you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's right there, especially.
the wrinkles in the forehead, that skin texture, that's exactly what I fucking saw. That's,
And the eyes and
Yeah, it does.
yeah.
I gotta say, man, I've never seen it before, and it does.
now, if
It does
this is
look-
a costume, if his sister made this shit, she
It's
did
damn
a great
good.
job.
It needs to be working at Disney.
Let me hit you with one. All right, if that is,
Okay.
it looks so much like a male chimpanzee, right? We all
Absolutely.
agree.
It could be.
Or gorilla or whatever.
Where
Yeah,
is this
agreed.
freaking video
does-
actually? Where is
The
this
note-
video
the-
taken?
The,
British
the
Columbia,
nose
Where is
ain't
it
right?
taken?
British Columbia.
Supposedly.
Right.
Because we're all
Yeah.
See-
told it is.
Well,
No,
I'm gonna jump in.
I see where you're going, John. I do.
What
Yeah.
I'm gonna say about this period, it's extremely realistic. The nose
It is.
does not look like a chimpanzee nor a gorilla because their nose is more. It's not
It's
pronounced
a
like
little
ours
bit different.
or theirs.
Yeah.
But this all goes back to evidence. Period. Y'all have seen my
Mm.
FLIR video,
Yes.
okay? Y'all know that that's authentic because y'all know me.
Absolutely.
This could be authentic. It looks great, but also with technology
And-
today and stuff I can order myself, I could reproduce this.
Yeah,
That's the
I-
problem. And I'm not trying to say it's not real or it is. I'm just saying that's the problem with the whole field right now.
I agree.
That hoaxes
I
are
agree.
out there and they
Yeah.
can buy the same stuff I can and watch a couple YouTube videos
Mhm.
and recreate that.
Right.
I agree, man.
Hey,
I'm not
hey,
saying it's
man.
real either, but all I'm saying is it's
Let me throw.
whatever that is damn
oh
close.
my God.
Let
Hey,
me-
man.
It makes me think that Todd has actually seen these things though, because that's fucking nuts on.
Well,
if
that's
it's a
what I
fake,
was gonna
that's
get to
nuts
with that.
on.
Coming from
Reason
a
I-
cosplay and doing the stuff I do, it is very hard to reproduce even with makeup. See the discoloration in the eye right there that matches up into the eye? That is a light reflection. That is
Where,
very
right
hard to
here?
do with makeup. Look at the ear. Look at the ear structure. That is what got me scared because I've seen one of those that close. And see
You
the
got
ear.
a vein. You know, and you got a vein right there in the temple. I mean, and that's
This is if whoever did this, and just like what Sean was saying, whoever did this has seen one face to
yes,
face because
Well,
it's hard to It's for me.
it is.
I mean, I'm sitting here shaking.
I haven't seen
It
one
brought me back
face-to-face.
too, man. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, and, you know, we talked about this last week. I think the guy in the past has had experiences and just got maybe a little carried away with the passion he had on, you know what I mean. You know what I'm getting
Yeah.
at. We talked about it, but I don't know if it's real or not. All I know is that kind of, yeah. I mean, it brought me back. It's like, hey, Justin just joined us. Justin, you're gonna have to. I gotta.
Bring him up to
Yes.
speed. We've been talking
Bring him
about
up to
genitalia for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I can't. I gotta. For some reason, he's locked up with his audio and his video.
Whether that's real or not, that's pretty spot on. Or what?
Well,
I'll
what I
agree
was
with you
gonna
on
say
that.
is, I haven't
Mhm.
seen one face to face myself. I've seen them, but never anything like that. But I have
Yep.
been shared a photo from Eastern Texas by someone I
Huh?
do trust,
Yes.
and that is exactly what that one looked like.
What
Yep.
it looks like.
I will.
It was a good picture.
Yeah.
I will
Hey,
say
Justin,
this.
what's up, man?
You guys hear me yet?
There.
Yeah, we got you, buddy.
All right, I got my video off. I'm in my car driving,
That's
but I'm
fine,
on a
man.
Bluetooth hands-free set, so don't you all worry.
Yeah.
All right, man. You know all the guys, right? Got Travis, we got Sean, JR, good old John Switzer, and Jerry Spikes and Sean. You know Sean Wilson, of course. So I just figured for this particular topic, man, you'd do great. You'd be a great addition.
I'm not sure how I feel about that if you guys have been talking about genitalia for the past hour and a half.
We're talking about Jeremiah's genitalia. He likes to tell us how big
my
it is all the
genitalia,
time.
especially my genitalia. I'm just anyway, Justin, would you mind giving the guy? I know a little bit of your. Would you mind giving us a quick background?
Nope, not at all.
Okay.
I don't have a whole lot special. I don't have any special training. My big claim to fame is basically I was born and raised in the Amazon jungle of Colombia, South America. I lived there for the first 9.5 years of my life. My parents were missionaries with an indigenous tribe way out in the middle of the jungle. So I spent a lot of my first growing up years either out in the middle of the jungle living with this tribe or in our school base, which was in a valley in the Andes Mountains. Which is, I mean, it's still jungle, right? So that's kind of basic my background in it. So I have a lot of experience from that and just the different perspective I have on life in general for growing up that the way I did. And we've had our own interesting experiences down there. My dad sighted 3 very large ape-like creatures in a canopy one time. Much larger than any of the local fauna should be down there. They weren't able to identify them. Just a quick sighting, but it was definitely a cryptid creature.
Okay. I think you told me that.
It also went into tied in with a local. I'm sorry.
No, I was just. You think you told me that at one point, but I'm glad you shared that again for these guys. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, well, it kind of sets my whole background, right? I was raised with the idea that there is more out there than science has ever accepted or will accept. So
yes,
it just preconditioned me living where I was to just know there's more out there than what science tells us there is or what science wants us to believe is out there, right? Many of the animals that we interacted with on a regular basis, come to find out, were so-called unknown to science or very endangered, right? We lived on a lake one time and we had this turtle that was quite a common food source for us.
Right.
And come to find out it was like extremely highly endangered, almost extinct. And it only lived in small patches down there, right? We didn't know that. For us on our lake, they were everywhere.
Right. So you didn't know what was endangered and what wasn't. It was just part of your life.
It was just part of what it was, right? So, I mean, that's how I grew up. From there, we moved to Upper Michigan, where my dad was from. So I went from the equatorial Amazon jungle to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, deep North Woods. And so I spent a lot of time up there. We built a summer camp in the middle of the North Woods, and I spent most of my summers in there. Some areas that actually have Bigfoot activity reported, even though at the time I was unaware of it. So that's kind of been my background with everything. I'm more of the scholarly type. I enjoy reading reports. I've probably read tens of thousands of reports over my years. I started really delving into the subject in my middle to late teens. Was in contact with some of the old names in the business. Lauren Coleman, who's not quite as active anymore. Craig Woolheater back in the day, you know, just some of them guys from way back when is where I really kind of started interacting with them.
Right.
And just been doing it ever since, man. I've tapped the BFRO website and I've just learned as much as I possibly could, or read as much as I possibly could. And I've been able to garner a pretty decent idea of common behaviors. And I just call them common behaviors and common attributes because I don't know if they're real or not, but it's just commonalities or different threads between most of the reports that I read or different things like that.
Right. See, that's why I knew you'd be a good addition to this topic. And, you know, we're basically, Justin, what we've been talking about for the past 2 weeks is, you know, different, you know, how many subtypes we think are out there, how many, you know, different types around the world. Now, let me ask you a question. Now, and you may have mentioned it already, but the ones your dad saw, how big were they again?
Okay, well, his estimation was they were at least the size of a chimpanzee. So
Okay.
we're talking around 4 foot is his best estimate. Now, the way it happened was they were traveling down the river in a boat, turned around a bend, and way off in the canopy, probably 100, 150 yards off, up in the tops of the trees, they saw these three basically big black shapes. And they only got to see them for a couple of seconds, and then they took off through the trees. But
that's
the description of the description of how they moved was what really caught my notice. My dad said they moved faster than any of the other creatures he had seen down there and what he was familiar with.
Well, you know,
your
dad would know. He would know, though. You know, your dad
exactly.
He would know. And there's not supposed to be anything like that in South America.
No. The largest ones that we knew about, or pretty much are down there, what we call the gray woolly monkey. I think they're also commonly called the Cherico monkey. Those guys get 2 to 3 feet. Common food source for us. Overall, those were the tallest, biggest, most muscular monkeys that we had.
Right.
Otherwise, we had like the black howlers, the red howlers.
Yeah.
Those were the second of the biggest, bulkiest types of monkeys that we had. And my dad was like, these things were easily like 3 times their size. They were definitely not any one of those.
Justin?
Yes, sir.
If I may, I had to step out for a minute. What country in South America?
Okay, Colombia.
Colombia? Okay, my first wife was from Peru, so I ran that Amazon area.
Okay. Yep. So we were not really off the Amazon. I mean, it's all the Amazon jungle, Amazon basin. We were mostly in the Orinoco basin, off the Orinoco River.
Yes.
So it was kind of our territory of where we were at.
Which is like that'd be a tributary, right, of the Amazon?
Yeah. I mean, it is still all connected to the Amazon.
Yeah.
But if you're going to like the micro geography of it, you're looking at the Orinoco basin versus the Amazon basin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And quite a bit of time in Guatemala, also in the military. So.
Okay.
Me and you actually need to kind of talk a little bit on the private.
Yeah, I'm always open.
Beautiful down there.
Yep.
It is. It's
absolutely.
And I spent time in Brazil, so I mean, I don't know how much the areas, how much. And do the Colombian Amazon, the Brazilian Amazon, Peruvian Amazon, do they all differ?
Yes.
Or are they pretty much similar?
It depends on what attributes you're looking at. I mean, there are going to be some similar attributes, but some are going to be, different terrain within the jungle itself.
You got to look at Brazil and Colombia is all on the east side, where Peru is on the west side.
On the west side.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, very, very cool, Justin. Thank you for sharing that, man. I appreciate
Absolutely.
that. So yeah, basically that's what we've been talking about. Now, just to get your input, I always told you I respected your input. I think you have a great mind for this stuff, man. As far as subspecies out there, and then I'm talking just North America, what's your opinion?
Okay. I kind of differ with everybody else. I'm kind of at a loss. There's definitely different in descriptions. I mean, there's no doubt about that. You definitely have a lot of variation in your descriptions.
Right.
I am hesitant to attribute it to different specific types of species.
Okay.
Or subsets. Simply because I don't think there's enough real information to know. We could be looking at simple regional differences, right?
Right. Okay.
Like take black bears, for example. Black bears in Florida are kind of smaller than the black bears we got upper Michigan or Canada.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And then you're looking at your color variants. Brown bears can go anywhere from blonde to blueberry black.
Correct.
And then there's just so many different variants you can have, especially if you look at humans as a species and the variants we have, right? So yes, there are definite marked differences in different populations. Absolutely.
Okay.
And some of those populations definitely have common attributes, right?
Absolutely.
So, and I agree with that 1,000%, but a lot of it boils down to how do we classify it in general, right? Are you going to classify, like if you're studying taxonomy, they'll classify separate subspecies based by a color variation or based by sometimes even a geographical variation, right? So it's hard to say,
It is.
So I've seen like Lauren Coleman, he classifies his, he has one specific classification called the marked hominids that he separates out from the rest of them. because they have like a piebald coloring, or they'll have blonde streaks, or you know, things like that. So we can't even all agree that this thing exists in the first place. It's kind of hard to break it down into subsets.
Okay. Fair enough.
Amen.
Fair enough.
Amen. Yeah.
There's a lot of variations. I can definitely see where that comes into.
And yeah, don't get Justin wrong. I know Justin's a believer, but I understand what he's saying. He's saying kind of what Switzer always says. You know, that you don't know. There's no biology. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, there's no way you can break them down to subsets or races or species without proving they exist first.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
I
still
mean,
trying.
yeah, I
We're
mean,
still trying.
you know.
We're still. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean,
We got to shoot down a spaceship first.
Yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt.
We're still trying to figure out. We're still looking real hard at Patty. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, and that's a video, and it's clear.
Yeah, I think there's enough anecdote. There's enough evidence to prove it for me. I mean,
same here. As far as that, absolutely.
The footprints, all the shit that's out there, the DNA and everything. To me, I besides seeing one,
right.
There's enough evidence and the eyewitness reports is enough alone to hang a person. You know? I mean,
over and over, we put people to death row on death row for
unless.
Well, there's enough.
Put me on a lie. You give me a lie detector test, I'll pass it 100 times out of 100 times.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, see, and I'm the guy. I've never seen one. I've never ever had any type of Bigfoot experience or anything I could definitely say, yeah, I saw something. But
right.
I'm a firm believer because the same thing, right? The evidence is out there. Is it definitive proof? Well, no, but the evidence is stacked up that there is something there. You can't deny that. That's my view of it. So that's what intrigues me the most about it is, you know, there has to be something there.
Right. But yeah, I see what you're saying. To prove it to regular the populace, you know what I mean? Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You know, you can drop the truth in somebody's lap all day long, and if they don't, I could go. I could get real political right now and start talking about some shit, but I won't. There's all kinds of proof left and right of all kinds of stuff, and people don't want to fucking buy it, and it drives me batshit crazy.
Words left and right.
You're talking about acceptance on that. I mean, there's enough of us that have seen it, enough of us that believe it, but there's not enough of the rest of them to believe it. That's acceptance on their part. Right.
Yeah,
I mean, I've seen
that's the media controlling the narrative, you know.
Oh yeah, let's go. We can go political.
I was just gonna say it's a good point. Yeah. But yeah,
and I'm not talking about the political part, but that's, you know, you get a Bigfoot sighting and 10-11 News reports it, and they always snicker and laugh about it. You know, so and so says they saw this thing run across I-80 by the Niagara, or, you know, by the river somewhere. And they got to giggle about it a little bit. Well, this person's scared to death, and they pissed their pants because they saw this thing, and they giggle about it. Well, you know, that
pisses me off. It pisses me off, and I know it pisses you off too, Sean, as well, because when they snicker and they make their jokes,
well, it does me. I deal with the guys at work. They mess with me all the time. To me, personally, it don't bother me.
Right, it doesn't mean any more either.
Yeah, I say, you know what? Y'all don't believe me? Go out in the woods with me one night.
Wait till you see one. Yeah.
And they won't even go. And you're like, well, why won't you go? Well, I ain't going out in them woods after dark.
Right, exactly.
Okay,
so
nothing's out there. What are you worried about? You know?
Exactly.
That's it. I mean,
I won't lie. Back in the day, you know, when I was known as the crazy Bigfoot guy around here, at first it bothered me, but you know, just for a short while. But now, man, I don't give a damn. You know, I know what I've seen. I know what I've experienced. Same with you, Travis. Same with the rest of you. You know, we know what we've experienced. You know, so. But as far as
I've just learned to have to deal with the fact that everybody's intellect is far inferior to mine. So, you know, when they laugh at me, I just laugh at them because I know what they don't know.
there you go.
Yeah, all those people
Well said.
become pretty stupid when you see one and you know they're real, and all the naysayers they turn into the idiots real quick.
Uh-huh.
I can't help but
Exactly.
wonder if someone from the media that does all the snickering, let's say you get them out in the woods and they happen to see one, and it changes them so much that they're obviously not going to be the same person on that news media program. So what's going to happen to them? Lose their job, maybe?
Possibly.
Well, then they
You know.
become George
Possibility.
Nori and host Coast to Coast AM, because that's
There you
pretty
go.
much what happened to him.
Oh,
When he
there
got
you
into
go.
the paranormal stuff, he was a full-blown reporter,
Yep.
right? Like
Yep.
he was a big news guy, and then all of a sudden he started turning on to the paranormal weird stuff, and he, you know, everybody laughs at him now, but he used to be just, you know, a full-blown reporter guy that everybody took seriously. He was a newsman.
Right.
You know something that just astounds me is Tucker Carlson. A couple of years, it wasn't even that long ago. He did a piece on UFOs. He had a guy from the Navy, and they verified that there are unidentified flying objects. The government has they admitted to it. They have no idea what these things are. They outmaneuver and outclass anything this Earth has ever produced.
Blowing away F-35 stealth fighters, you know.
You would think that would be like big news, like big news. UFOs are real, and
media,
it just kind of glosses. They gloss over it. It's not really a story.
Our media now is basically state run. This is like China's state run media.
Absolutely.
It's nothing but propaganda.
Propaganda.
Yeah, they only show what they want to, and that's it. So
they're all that yet.
I mean, talking about as
crazy.
far as people believing and accepting. I mean, it's a guy I work with. He's an engineer, chemical engineer, super bright guy. He's from Pennsylvania originally. Hunts, fishes, outdoorsman, real down to earth, drives a big old jacked up truck. You know, he's not like your little dorky pocket protector engineer you're picturing. I mean, like this dude's like us guys, you know, he's a down to earth guy.
Sure.
And he came to me and he said, look, he said, you still with the Bigfoot stuff. I said, what? He said, I keep hearing you like the local Bigfoot expert. And I was like, I ain't no expert. I said, but if you want to talk about Bigfoot, we can talk about Bigfoot, you know. And so we get to talk and everything, and he's real open-minded. He's curious, you know.
Sure.
And he said, my only hang-up is I've spent my life in the woods, and this guy, he's only maybe 30 years old now, late 20s. He said, I've never seen or experienced anything like that. And I said, well, I hope you don't. And he kind of looked at me. I said, seriously, I hope you don't. I said, because I wished I never had. I said, because the woods are not the same for me anymore, and I can't let it go or get it out of my head.
All right.
I said, so I really hope you don't. Yeah. And the more we talked, you know, and he's super smart. He's, like I say, he's very intelligent. And I started showing him stuff, showed him some of my evidence I found myself, other things. And the more I showed him, he was kind of funny. He's like, dude, that's like what he said. He said, dude, I really don't want to see one. I said, well, I hope you don't.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, I hope I don't either. I said, because it will change your whole aspect and view on a whole lot of your life.
And it does. It sure as hell does.
And that's the thing is, you know, some of these other guys, I've shown them the same stuff. And it's funny because their tunes started changing the more. So, I mean, these guys, they hunt and they fish, they're outdoors, they trap, farm, you know. And the more you show them stuff that I have found myself locally, and they don't have nothing to say for it.
Right.
Like, go ahead, explain it away. I'm all ears. If you got a better explanation and it's something really weird going on out there, I'm all ears. And they never have anything. And that's when they start, you know, but it takes that personal one-on-one, and that comes back to the credibility thing that they know me and they know I'm what do I have to gain to show up to work and show them pictures of footprints I found?
Right. Nothing.
Other than getting picked on, you know. I mean, I don't get nothing out of it.
You're right. Right.
Yeah, there's no glory in this game.
No. People think, you know, people don't realize that there's nothing to gain, really. I mean, you know, it's funny. Back to what you were saying, Travis and John as well. You know, half the people, a lot of these guys used to pick on me years ago. You know, get a call from them 2 years down the road, and they've had that. You know, they've had experiences, and they're, like you said, Travis, their tune changes real quick once they experience it for themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes. You know, that's basically what it takes. You know, to flip someone.
Well,
like
it does. I mean,
it really does.
I often wonder when someone says, "Oh, I spend all my time in the woods hunting and fishing and so forth."
Well, that's the big one, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, how much time is that? Is that you go out on a weekend, or is that you go out and spend 2 weeks hunting and fishing?
Well, even if you this way, John, if they did it all weekend and for 2 weeks, you're only talking 52 weekends of the year.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm with you.
not only that, all the years I have spent in the woods from childhood to now, I have literally had a handful of experiences that I can count with all my fingers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some of which I didn't even know what was going on until after the fact. I realized what it was and looked back on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's
so
how
if it hadn't culminated to the one experience, none of the others they wouldn't have counted for nothing.
Right.
That's how mine went. It was like, hearing a wood knock, finding footprints, and seeing something that looked like that face that we were looking at earlier. I saw this much of it, like here and down and over, and it was bang that fast when I turned and looked. Now that was 40 some odd years. Okay.
And it's still with you.
40 freaking years. Yeah, 40 some odd. I don't know, 43, something like that. It doesn't happen every day. I mean, when I see all these photographs coming in, oh, Jeremiah, are we going to ever hit that topic? Oh, for crying out loud.
Yeah, we're gonna hit it. We gotta hit it soon, Jeremiah. Yeah.
Oh, Lordy, I mean, that is something. But
well,
yeah,
you know what? Real simple. My daddy is 64 years old. He has spent his whole life farming, hunting, fishing. He has seen one bobcat in his life, and it ran across the road in front of him one night.
There you go. Yep.
And he wasn't looking for it. It just happened to run across the road in front of him. That's the only bobcat he has ever seen in his life. Yeah. He's heard them. Yeah. And the bobcat is nowhere near as intelligent as these things are.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, it's like a guys that deer hunt their whole life and never, ever kill a trophy buck. Never even see one. Never get a shot at one. It's time and place. Time and place. Real
That's all it is.
Yep. Terrific. Justin, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm just listening to you guys banter on.
Here's a quick deal.
Yeah.
How long you spend in the Amazon basin?
I lived there till I was 9 years old.
He was 9 years old. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Amazon basin is bigger than the United States.
Absolutely.
As a tenth of the population of the United States. And I can tell you, you think that Georgia bush is thick. You think Virginia bush is thick. We think southern Oklahoma bush is thick. That place down there, you can step 10 feet off the trail and be lost forever.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, not even 10 feet.
We are still discovering new species every day down there. We are discovering tribes of people that have not touched human interaction, white man interaction, up until 10 years ago down there.
That is actually the first job that my dad had in the jungle. He was what they call a contact missionary. His job was to find tribes that have never been contacted before. So yes, indeed, they definitely exist. They still do exist, and they're out there.
And wasn't yours now? Was that the first? Was yours the first tribe he had run into like that, or had he had prior experiences?
No, his first job was just to try and track down the tribe. What they do is they hear rumors, right, from known tribes. They'll talk about other people or local villages with raids and stuff. And so his very first thing was to try and contact this tribe. Now they did find the area. They never actually got to see the Indians. They did find their village, but the Indians were so terrified of my dad and his three companions, they completely abandoned their village and moved deeper into the bush.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
All right, Justin, if this is this, all right, we're talking human beings. And he went down there to find these human beings.
Correct.
And you're saying, now, if I get it right, you're saying they never saw them.
They never physically saw them. They could hear them sometimes. They knew they were out there. They never physically laid eyes on the Indians. Never.
All right, now they're human beings.
That
And
is correct.
everything you just said, what does that remind anybody of? You know?
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
And they're human beings. So there you go.
A lot of my theory and things that I do when I discuss Bigfoot, a lot of it I actually base off of the interactions that my family had with the native tribes down there and the way they did things. And it amazes me the parallels that I find between the tribes that we dealt with, even the ones we lived with, and a lot of the purported Bigfoot behaviors in the Bigfoot culture. The
Which I think
astound me.
The main question
I can imagine
was the tribes that you were searching for, was they interactively trying to avoid whoever was searching for them?
Yes, they were, because like I said, by one of the days they were traveling down a trail, my dad and his companions. So what happens, they found a trail that the Indians used, and they would go down it and they would leave gifts along it to try and show that they're friendly, kind of like a gifting tree, right? Same concept.
right.
Things that they might be interested in, nothing of actually intrinsic value, but just things that would catch their eye, a mirror, a comb, different things like that. And they always identified it with a strip of cloth. And they could see where the trail was being traveled. Sometimes the gifts would be taken. And one time they kept pushing further, right? Going a little bit further down the trail. And one time they got to a point where through the trees, they could see the top of their village. Now their village was basically one big giant pavilion called the Maloka. And they got close enough where they could see the roof, and it terrified my dad and his companions. They literally ran back to their base camp, locked themselves in their safe room, and stayed there for 3 days because they were convinced that the tribal warriors were going to come and kill them because they got too close. That sounds kind of crazy to us, right? But what if the roles were reversed? You're sitting at home watching TV with your family, and you see some kind of crazed creature off in the field staring at your house.
Right, yeah.
Right? I mean, you guys are going to want to defend yourself and your family.
It would be like paratroopers dropping out of the sky.
Exactly.
You know,
right.
I mean,
and so that's what ended up happening. And then when they went back after a few days, there was no contact. They didn't hear anything, nothing. That's when they discovered that the entire village had actually been abandoned.
Because they knew they were on their trail, or
right? Because they got so close, it scared them.
Yeah.
And there was fresh. Yeah, there was fresh ashes in the fire. They could tell there was definite signs of it being abandoned. It wasn't just not being used, like they had left in a hurry. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. And you showed me didn't you? And I could have sworn you showed me a picture of some spears that he left behind as well, because he left them to
absolutely.
Yeah. And I tell you what, those were the
Facebook page. I got all the pictures, a lot of the pictures from growing up on my Facebook page. You guys can check them out, man. They're not
very interesting stuff, guys. I highly recommend checking it out. Justin shared a lot of stuff with me, and it's extremely fascinating.
Your experience, Justin, what do you think the general populace of those tribes, say in a 1,000-mile square area, would be?
You know, I could not even hazard a guess, because people don't even know how many's in the tribe because they're so nomadic, right?
Right.
I know the one tribe we settled in with and lived with, called the Maku tribe. Purportedly, they only had, if you talk to the people that supposedly know, only like 200 people in their whole tribe. Now we know the missionaries, the families that live there, know there's a lot more than that.
Right.
Right. Because the way they work is they work in clan units.
Okay.
And they're nomadic. They travel their territory. And sometimes the clan units might be 20 people. Sometimes they might be 60 people. Sometimes they splinter off into smaller groups, and you might have a family of 5 or 6 going one direction.
Sure.
They're constantly interchanging and moving around. They have no localized central area.
Right.
So there is no way. And some of them would never come out. some of them would just be so deep they didn't want to interact with anybody, and some of them became our friends and they were around more often, right?
Now, the tribe you were born
that's just
into,
one tribe.
the one you were born into, Justin, how many of you were there? If you remember, I mean.
Again, we never knew. We never had a population count.
I got you. Okay,
Because
even
of that
within your own
rotational
tribe.
cycle. Yeah, even
Okay.
within the tribe. Because the
interesting.
tribe was made up of the family clans.
Okay, I got you.
And
And what's
like
that
I said,
again, John? Like you said, what's that sound like?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. The parallels between how it works, and you know.
You go.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Well, there was a story. There was a Native American man. It was somewhere out west. I don't remember if it was in California, Washington, somewhere out kind of northwest. It was like 1930 something.
He come out of the mountains.
Yeah, had been there.
Utsi.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. And he didn't want to talk to nobody, didn't want to meet nobody, and he just stayed up there, and nobody knew he was even there.
Yeah, he was the last of a tribe.
Yeah,
yeah.
But yeah,
last of the Mohegan. Yeah, he was the last. Yeah, and he taught. They what's the word I'm looking for? Domesticated him. They finally got him in wearing white men's clothing and so forth. And he wasn't alive very long once he got into our world.
Right.
But he taught archery, you know, and I think
bow making, primitive skill. Yeah.
He traveled around with people. And I'm trying to remember. I know who it was, but it's like, okay, my brain's not working.
I read an article about it.
It's very sad to me that, once, like you said, John, once they got him, in white man's clothing and all that, he didn't last long, and that's very sad to me.
Yeah.
The same thing is actually happening to that tribe that I lived with, and it's horrendous.
It's horrible. I think it's awful.
Well, what it makes me think about is like Gary and Justin were talking about how dense, just how wild and dense that land is. When Europeans first came to North America, I don't remember who it was, but they wrote about how extensive the woodlands were, and basically that a squirrel could go all the way from the East Coast to the Mississippi without ever touching the ground, because there was continuous tree cover. That extensive before Europeans came here and started farming like massive. Because Native Americans, they did raise crops, but they did it on an extremely small scale and just small clearings. They didn't clear 300,000 acre fields.
Not only that, but what a lot of people don't realize with the jungle is the ground cover itself is almost impenetrable. Yeah, you have your canopy, which is but. It's not like the movies you watch, Jungle Book, and the guy's like running full tilt through the wood. That doesn't happen, right?
No.
You could literally, you literally have to have a machete simply to walk through the jungle anywhere.
Yes.
Right.
It's so thick and impenetrable. Unless you've seen it and experienced that, you got no idea.
Hard to fathom. Justin, do you think they'd remember you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've there's been some contact with some of the ones that we grew up with, and they have. They're older now, obviously, right? I'm 39, but some of them have asked about my parents and my family for sure.
Oh wow.
One of the young ones that we were involved with, when she got older, she was asking about the white family that she stayed with and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, there's definitely. If they're still alive, they would remember us for sure.
Right.
Put it that way.
So what would you think the chances are? Not so much the chances, but what do you think would happen? Would one of them ever want to come to see how you live?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You think?
Have they? Has that happened?
So,
how well did they take to it?
So what has happened with this tribe is a small branch of them had decided to come out of the jungle and join a Colombian jungle village.
Okay.
And if you actually Google them, they're called the Nukak Maku.
Okay.
You will find documentaries about them nowadays. And
wow.
they'll sit here and tell you about how there's only so many left and the population is dying, and so they came out of the jungle and they're becoming civilized and all this kind of stuff. So they are adapting to, not obviously our culture, but to the culture down there.
Right.
And it's sad because they're actually losing their own culture in the process. But
Yeah,
the thing that they don't tell you in the video or the documentaries and the photo shoots and all this stuff, they make it seem
Right.
like that's all that's left of that tribe.
Right, right.
And it's not the case. Now, and I know this for a fact because we were still down there when this started happening.
Right.
In fact, there was a production crew that came down and filmed a special for the Discovery Channel about our tribe and about this happening. And the family clan that did this was actually ostracized from the rest of the tribe.
Oh, wow.
Because they were giving up on their traditions.
Sure.
And kind of moving in to the villages and stuff. So
right.
They have done it. Some of them have come to the big cities and tried to represent the tribe, the ones that were able to learn Spanish.
Yeah.
Because understand that they're people just like us. Some of them have great abilities. Some of them are extreme intellects in their own right. Some are very adventurous. Some aren't, right?
Right.
So that has happened. The problem is in Colombia specifically, in the governments, they don't recognize the Indians as people.
I know. I know. And
they're considered animals. So
that's a whole nother freaking monster to talk. That's totally disgusting to me. It really is.
It absolutely is. But that's how they have it set up. So for them to come in and try and assimilate is really hard.
It's hard, yeah. But gentlemen,
they have enough. They have enough intelligence that one of them could. It's possible for one of them to have enough intelligence or the intelligence to be able to go through the first grade, graduate from high school, and go on into college.
Absolutely. Why not?
Yeah.
Sure.
Exactly.
I would agree with you there. I don't know anything about it, but sure. Yeah. I would say yes. Yeah. Gentlemen, I hate to do this. We have run over our time. Why don't we pick this up? I wouldn't mind picking this right back up next week. Maybe Justin, get you on again if you can swing it. And we appreciate you coming on, man. That was awesome. That was just that short period of time you were on was awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, no problem. I love doing it.
We really appreciate it. But yeah, for everyone out there, we will see you guys next. Listeners, thanks for joining in again. We will be back next week for episode 9, and we'll pick this right back up and
all right.
have ourselves another good discussion. Gentlemen, have a good evening, and I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. And thank you everyone out there for supporting the show and our little organization here. Have a good night, gentlemen.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
All right, Justin. Thank you.